We're talking today with Mr. Jake DeWitt of Grand Rapids, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Now, Mr. DeWitt, can you begin by giving us some basic background on yourself? To start with, where were you born?
I was born in 1922, right here in Grand Rapids, and went to Hall Street School, which is quite close to where I lived. I lived by the Calwinator plant there.
What did your father do for a living?
My father worked for the Tanglefoot Company.
And what was that?
And the Tanglefoot Company, it just the name itself tells what they do. They hung these sticky things that the flies sticked on. That's what they were making.
Made fly paper or things
fly
like
paper company.
All right. And did he keep that job through the 30s?
He started in 1933, and he died of a heart attack when he was 71. So he worked there for quite a few.
All right. So now, did your family still not have a whole lot of money? I mean, do you think you were?
No, we were low class family. I had 4 sisters, and then I came along.
All right. And how long did you stay in school?
That's a different story again. One day going to Hall Street School, I ran out on the road and the car broke both of my legs. So I was off for quite a spell. And then they put me in an ungraded room in Hall Street School. And from there I went to Davis Tech to learn a trade. They were on Division Avenue at that time. And I learned setting type for the type machine and electric welding, but I didn't take either one of them. I had a bicycle and I got a job for Western Union. I worked there for a while, but my sister was working at Bissell, and she informed me that they were hiring at Bissell. So when I got a West Side run, I parked my bicycle against the wall and went in and talked to the guy, and he brought me upstairs, and I started working right away. So I called Western Union at noon and says I quit. I think they still owe me about $5.
There you go. All right. Now, do you remember how old you were at that time? Were you?
15, 16.
Okay. So this is still late 1930s then, and it's really before the war starts. Okay. Now, then you stay with Bissell then, and you're working for him. Now, during that period of time, like 39 and 40 into 41, you've got a war going on in Europe, but America is not in the war yet.
That's right.
Were you paying any attention to that kind of thing?
There was nothing but news about things going on, but I just kept going to work every morning to Bissell. I worked on the assembly line there. And then when I came back from the service, they seen that I couldn't do anything with my right hand, and they made me a foreman over 60 women. I was ready to join the Navy again.
All right. Let's go back there to that period there, right at the time of the beginning of the war. Do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Over the radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your reaction then?
I said, wow. Wow. Little did I know I was going to be there soon.
Okay. Now, did you want to go and enlist, or were you just going to wait for them to catch up with you?
No. A buddy of mine were sitting at the curb because we lost our job, and they couldn't make anything because we weren't doing anything for the war or for effort. So we looked at each other and we thought, ooh, that draft board, I can feel them breathing down my back. We went over to the recruiting station at Reach Lake, and that's where we joined the Navy. Then they sent us to Detroit for a checkup.
Okay. Now, so you chose the Navy.
I chose the Navy.
Why did you choose the Navy?
Well, for the simple reason you have a nice warm bed to sleep in.
Right. So you didn't want to sleep in the mud?
No. I corresponded with, there was 5 of us on our street that were drafted, or they were in the Army. And there was one fellow stayed home because he was too old to go in. So he got the letters from all of us and then told us what everybody was doing. And my buddy, John, I just showed you, he was in Europe somewhere, and a guy went to see him we all knew, you know, and he said, "Oh, that poor Johnny was drinking. He was eating green bread." I said, "Well, you tell him I eat the bread when it's still warm."
Right.
In the Navy.
Yep, that was something the Navy was famous for. They had better food. Okay, so you enlist in the Navy, you get processed in Detroit, and then where do they send you from there?
I went to Camp Green Bay in Milwaukee.
Okay.
For training, and from there I went to there I went to New York, Pier 92, Brooklyn, New York, and caught the Roper.
Okay. Now, before we get on the Roper, we talk about the Roper. Tell me a little bit about the experience in basic training. What did you do there in Wisconsin?
Well, I thought it was odd. Every time we went for a march, we had to go on the marching field, and they were decorating some pilot and putting a pin on them. We did a lot of that.
Did you have to learn to follow orders and that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you have an easy time adjusting to that way of life, or was it hard?
Well, maybe it's me, but I take things as it comes. It really doesn't bother me one way or the other, but going through basic training, it was okay.
Okay.
It was okay.
Now, were you in pretty good physical shape then, so you could do all the marching and that kind of thing?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, did they give you any weapons training, or
no
just marching around?
Not until I got on the Roper.
Okay. And did they give you any training back in Wisconsin that really had to do with the Navy and with ships?
No, not until I got. See, they were short of sailors.
Okay.
And we went. Where maybe it would be 2 months, but we went there in 28 days, you know.
Okay, and so they move you through training, because you started training at the end of 1942, is that right? And then you're over, you joined the Roper kind of early 43, roughly?
Yeah.
Is that about right? Okay.
Latter part of 42.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're right there. Now, this is a point when, well, tell me about the Roper. What was the ship's background?
Roper was a beautiful lady. We all respected her, and she did her job when she was supposed to. We had a beautiful captain. He was just like you and I talking. He was an okay guy, you know.
Now, was he a career Navy man?
Yeah, he was a career Navy man. Yeah. All
right. Now, was he the same? Did the ship have the same commander the whole time through?
No,
or did he?
They changed. After he sank the U-85, he didn't stay too long with the ship, and he got a brand new one. Mm-hmm. They put him, and we got another skipper.
Okay. Now, in the meantime, describe the ship. What kind of ship was it?
Well, it was built. It was an old ship, but it was built like a submarine. It was narrow and long, and it was maneuverable. We outrun the new ships, the new destroyers coming in. We were going faster than they were.
All right. You've actually got, you're wearing a hat there with the ship itself. When people look at that, they can see the profile of the ship with the distinctive four smokestacks. Yeah. And that's characteristic of those kind of World War I vintage American destroyers. And a lot of those saw service in the Second World War. All right. So you're on one of those. Okay. Now, what had that ship already done before you joined it?
It picked up a lady that was in a lifeboat, and she was having a baby, and brought him aboard the Roper, and by golly, that poor guy's middle name is Roper.
And what did that man do later in life?
And guess what happened to him? He went to Annapolis, and now he's in the sea. He's an officer.
He went in the Navy. Well, by now he might be retired, 1942 or so until now. All right, so they'd done that, and then they had been involved in protecting convoys and chasing submarines and so forth.
Our first job when I got went to Norfolk and got filled up with supplies, and so they went up and down the Virginia coastline, which I thought, oh God, this is nice Navy work. No, the place was loaded with German subs through there.
Right. Now, in the time there where you were on the ship and patrolling off the coastline, did you encounter German submarines?
Yes, yes.
Now, what was your job on the ship?
I was a gunner's mate.
All right, and so where would you be positioned on the ship?
And you change places, but this particular time, when we got hit with a kamikaze, this is coming up later, then I was on number 1 gun, but otherwise I'm on the galley deck house up there.
Okay. Were you in a position to see much of what was going on when the ship was in action?
Well, there's always a guy with a party of 5 on the galley deck that has phones, and he's yelling out what's going on. So that he's our radio.
Right.
He was our radio.
Okay, so you got a good idea. Now, what do you remember about that time when you're cruising off of Virginia? What were you doing then?
Can I go back to what happened? A PBY. Do you know what a PBY is?
It's a flying boat.
It's a flying plane with 2 large engines, and it can land on the water. During World War II, they were called sub-chasers. And they would tell us where they were working. It was about 200 foot down, and they could see the German subs there. So they told us what latitude and what longitude to go to, and we drop our depth charges, and sure enough, the oil start coming up. So I guess we had a direct hit that way. We had quite a few of those.
Okay. Now, of course, the Germans also had decoy tricks of their own. I mean, they could release oil spills and try to make it look like you hit them.
They did, yes.
Okay. Now, were there any situations when you actually fought a German submarine on the surface or saw enough wreckage come up to know that you'd actually hit one?
Well, that happened to the Roper just before I came on. They were two above on topside charging their batteries. But the skipper told everybody that, after it was all over with, told everybody that they didn't dive because they had just surfaced. This was a little after midnight. They just surfaced, and they didn't have enough power to dive. They were trying to outrun us. They could go 8 knots. We could go 18 or 20 knots. So we was catching them.
Yeah, and a submarine is pretty vulnerable when it's on the surface. It can't really fight a destroyer very well. All right. Now, do you have a sense about how long you did that kind of patrolling? How many months you were there?
Well, you know, when you're doing this type of thing, you don't keep track of the months. You just do what you have to do when you do it. Okay. That's it.
All right. So what was the next assignment your ship had?
After that, then they assigned us to go convoy duty. And we went through the Straits of Gibraltar. And by golly, them Germans were there too. Okay.
Now, when you tell us a little bit about taking a convoy, you went across the Atlantic with a convoy
There's
first?
A lot of Liberty ships. There must have been 200 or 300 Liberty ships. And I think when these captains go to Annapolis to train, they're told how to steer the ship, you know. So we never went straight. We zigzagged. Wherever we went, we were going this way and this way. The Germans could never get a beat on us. A lot of times we got fired at and we zigged when we were supposed to, and the torpedo go right by us.
Well, a destroyer is relatively maneuverable. I mean, it's fast and it can change course quickly, and it's narrow, as you said. So not a big target, at least if you're ready for him.
As I say, the Roper was narrow and long. We didn't go over the ways, we went through them.
All right. Now, on those first trips out there, both off the Virginia coast and then crossing the Atlantic, what was the weather like?
Well, sometimes we had storms. And then, of course, we had rain gear. we were covered up for it.
Right.
But we were in a lot of storms.
Well, when you were in a storm, what did that feel like? And were you afraid the ship was going to sink? Or?
Well, all you could see is waves coming at you. I mean, you were all alone out there like a cork on the water. That's it.
And the first time you got into a storm, was that a frightening experience, or?
Yes. For me it was, because that was my first one.
Right. Now, did you get used to that after a while?
Oh yeah. Well, everything, if it's repeated, after a while you get used to that, you know. And Navy life is repeating. You do the same thing all the time, only it's a little bit different, but it's still the same.
All right. Now, once you got across the Atlantic with that first convoy, you go through Gibraltar, you go into the Mediterranean at that point. Well, did you get attacked at that point, or?
No. After we left France, we went into the Panama Canal and went to Guam, And from Guam, we went to Okinawa.
Okay. But you're jumping kind of ahead of yourself in the story.
Yeah, well, I mean, that, after the convoy, we went just once, convoy.
Right. But then didn't you go into the Mediterranean then and stay there for a while?
Yeah, from France. We didn't stay too long. The last we did, we left the frogmen in World War II. They're SEALs now.
Right.
But they were frogmen in World War II. And we let them off in rubber boats, and they had a hole in the middle. They put an electric motor down in there, and they buzz away in the dark. You don't even hear them.
Okay. Now, do you remember where you were? Was this southern France for the landing there, or in Italy?
It was in the southern France, but I don't know where.
Right. Because there were landings in southern France.
See, they don't tell you where you are.
Right. Okay. So you're just out there. But you remember putting the frogmen in and sending them in because they blow up obstacles on the beach and that kind of thing. Okay. But now, did you visit North Africa while you went through the Mediterranean?
Yeah. After we dropped them off, then we went and got, I think they were French, but maybe they were Africa.
I think they were French.
But they brought their own food. They had live chickens and all that stuff, and they put a dance on with a big sword, and they jump up in the air. They put on quite it was a war dance is what it was, I think.
Yeah, they may have been North African soldiers in the French army.
But we picked them up.
Okay.
And brought them in.
All right. Now, but did you go ashore in North Africa any place?
No. The only place we went to shore after it was all over, we stopped in Italy, in Sicily, Sicily and Italy.
Okay. And what do you remember? What did you see in those places?
Well, I was surprised when we got ashore that in Italy that the whole town was leveled with bombing, but the cathedrals were still up.
Okay. And which city was that? Was that Naples or?
Yeah, that was in Naples.
All right. And did you spend much time on shore or just mostly on the ship?
No, probably 6 hours.
Okay.
And we're back on. They don't give you much time. You got to open your eyes and see what you got to see because they don't give you much time to see the sights.
All right. Now, in the time that you spent in the Mediterranean, did you encounter any more German submarines?
No, just on the Straits of Gibraltar.
And what happened there?
Well, we sank. We thought we sank a couple. As you say, they pull tricks on you, but.
Was it on the way going in? Or
that was on the way going. That's when we had the convoy with us.
Right. Okay.
And they sunk 3 ships while we were. See, and when a Liberty ship is hit, then they're supposed to peel off. They're all by themselves. Then the rest of the ships keep on going.
Yeah. And did you see that happen? Did you see any of these ships going off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because every time a ship got hit, then they peeled off, and they were. But I think there's 2 or 3 of our ships to take care of them. But we had our own duties.
Right.
We couldn't do anything there. We had this side to take care of.
Okay. So most of the escorts had to stay with the convoy.
Yeah, that's right.
It was someone else's job.
That was our job to stay with them.
Right. Now, when you were in the Mediterranean, did you see much by way of aircraft?
Yeah. When we got closer there, of course, they weren't flying by the States,
Right.
When you got way over there, then there was, quite a few airplanes flying, mostly all bombers.
Right. And they were our airplanes?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're having large bombing raids that are being sent north up into Europe at that time.
And boy, that roar that they make, oh my goodness gracious.
Now, in the brief times where you were stopping off in ports or whatever in Italy, did you see anything of the local population or just military personnel?
No, just personnel.
Okay. All right. Now, when you were on the ship, what sort of contact or communication did you have with home?
Just letters.
Okay. Now, were you married at this time? Or?
No.
Okay.
I didn't get married till I come home on a convalescent leave. I had my arm in a cast. I was hardly walking yet, and I got married. I don't know what I did that for.
Right. Okay. Now, so did your family write to you, or?
Yeah.
Okay. And would you write back to them very much, or?
Yeah, I was just going to tell you about one I did. We had a canary home, and his name was Petey. And I told the wife, I says, you take Petey out on the porch and let him get fresh air and stuff. And she says, when I got your letter, it was all cut up. They didn't let anything go. It was quite a censor.
Okay. So in that case, well, would the censor have known that Petey was a canary?
I never. Well, the reason I said Petey because we was around the Canary Islands, so I thought that she would pick that up.
Yep. But the censor picked it up.
But the censors, though, ooh, he's talking about something here. Zoom, zoom, zoom.
Right.
He did a lot of scissors work there.
All right. Now, at a certain point, didn't they refit the ship or change its mission or its job?
Did I?
No. Did the ship itself change?
Oh.
Being a regular convoy escort?
Well, after the last convoy, we went to Charleston, South Carolina. Then they made us LS, no, what the heck was the number? 20. We were APD 147. But then they took 2 of our stacks out. We had 4 stacks. And then we went on to Okinawa.
Okay. And what was your ship now equipped to be? I mean, was it a...
What's the ship now?
Well, no, what was the ship? They changed it from being a regular destroyer into some other type of ship. And you're talking about APDs and things like that.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what those are.
The frogmen worked with us, or we worked with the frogmen at that time, after they changed us to Rome.
All right. Now, did you carry any regular landing craft or just a little...
Yeah, we had 4 landing crafts aboard our...
Okay. And so then you were going to be used for naval invasions and landings?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So now, when the ship goes back to Charleston, then did you get some time then on shore? And
Yeah, we couldn't live on the ship. We lived in a barracks in Charleston, South Carolina.
And do you have a sense of how long you were there?
What's that?
Do you have a sense of about how long you were on shore then?
No. No, I don't.
Okay. Did you just spend your time sitting around in the barracks, or what did you do?
No, they give us plenty of liberty, but not enough time to go home to Michigan.
Right.
We had to stay there. Okay. We seen the sights. We know all about Norfolk, all over the place there.
All right. So yeah, so you're not home too long in that case.
No.
If you don't get to go home that way. All right. Then when they send you out to the Pacific, they send you through the Caribbean and the Panama Canal to get there?
Yeah, from southern France, we hit the Panama Canal, and then went into, come on now, I'm losing it, Guam.
Right, okay. Well, tell me about the Panama Canal first. What was that experience like?
Well, that was quite interesting. We lost one of our sailors there. He never showed up.
Yeah, so we didn't fall off the boat.
They give us 6 hours.
Ah.
And we came back in the time, but one guy did not. And what the heck? I forget his name. Anyway.
So you just stayed on shore?
Yeah, I never heard from him the rest of the war.
Okay.
He just...
All right. So then you get out, and then crossing this, did you stop any place between Panama and Guam, or did you just sail straight on through?
No, we went right straight through.
Okay. And did you sail by yourself, or were you with other ships?
Sometimes we were, and sometimes we weren't.
Okay.
I never knew what orders they got, but what orders they got, the way we went, we went with the ship. We didn't do anything else.
Okay. Now, when you're sailing with the ship and you're going around all of these different places, you'd mentioned that your original captain was a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
What was his replacement like?
Like a 80-day wonder. What do you call him?
90-day wonder, I think. So
90-day wonder, I guess it was, yeah.
So he was a lieutenant fresh out of a training class.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, this was his first ship. His first command, you know.
Right.
But he was a square fella because he talked to us. After things were done, you know, we asked questions, and he talked to us.
Now, on the ship, how important was it to sort of respect rank and keep the enlisted men separate from the officers and that kind of thing?
Well, they did keep themselves separate. They ate in their quarters, you know. But I didn't know any better. I mean, I talked to everybody.
Right. Well,
some people say I talk too much, but then I talk to everybody.
well, sometimes on the small ships, when you're all packed together, you all have to get along.
You got to talk to them, otherwise
Right.
you go nuts.
Yeah, and the rank doesn't matter so much.
Yeah.
Now, the new captain, was he somebody who just come in out of civilian life, or do you think he was a Navy guy too?
I don't know. He came from Annapolis. That's all I know. He was a 90-day wonder.
Well, he might have done a little better than 90 days if he's coming out of Annapolis.
But he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
He was a nice guy.
Okay. All right. So now once you got out to Guam, what did you do from there?
Well, you had to hold on because you didn't have any. We were 300 miles from Japan, and them damn planes were coming back faster than we could take care of them. It was hell over there.
Okay. Well,
they were
actually at Guam or later at Okinawa.
Okinawa.
Okay. But so did you stop at Guam on the way to Okinawa, or did you stay in Guam for a while first?
Well, we stayed in Guam and loaded up with supplies and everything, and then we went. Yeah.
All right.
We were in the first wave, but we got banged up with an oil tanker because we needed oil, and then we had to come back. But when we came back to Guam, then they wouldn't believe us because we were reported sunk because they found 2 of our landing barges just floating around out there, you know.
So what had really happened when you hit the tanker? What went on there?
He broke both of it. We had 2 landing barges on the starboard side and 2 on the port side. And on the starboard side, he just cleaned them right out. He took them right off.
Now, at the time, were you taking fuel from the tanker? Was that?
Yeah.
So you were very close to them because you have to connect there.
We were 10 feet apart. That's about
just in the waves, the 2 ships
But somebody zigged when they were supposed to zag, and we come together.
All right. So the ship is damaged. Then you show up in Guam, and they don't expect you.
But they wouldn't believe us because what we did, they patched up the hole with mattresses. And they put all the fresh water on the port side, so we were going back to Guam almost on our side.
So had the hull then been cracked or whatever?
Yeah, it had about a 12-foot gash in the side of right by the water's edge.
Oh, okay. So by having the ship tilt a
little
bit,
they had to change the water over so it got that out of the water, out of the ocean.
Right. Okay. Now, do you have a sense of how long it took to get that fixed and go back out again?
It didn't take too long. I think they just slapped some metal on there and welded it, and away we went again.
Most likely. All right.
We weren't there too long.
Now, did they replace the landing craft too?
What's that?
Did they replace the landing craft? You lost 2. Could you get 2 new ones?
We went with 2 over there.
Now, did you have frogmen or people you were supposed to be landing, or?
We had. They would come ashore. They'd come aboard when we needed them. When we was. But they weren't living with us.
Okay.
They just joined us when they were about to go with us over there.
Okay. Now, can you describe what happened then when you got to Okinawa?
Well, as I say, it was hell over there. We, the first day, the Japanese would swim out from the islands with dynamite on them, and they'd hang around our ship. So we had 4 on a port and 4 on the starboard with submachine guns, and we had to fire at everything that floated in the ocean. And out of the 6 times I fired, 4 times they blew up. There were 4 swimmers out there, but that's what they were doing.
All right. Now, at the same time, were you also being attacked from the air?
Yeah. All the time, because as I say, it was only 300 miles from Japan, and they would just come right on back.
Okay. And what would happen during the air attacks? What was going on?
I don't know. We were so gone busy.
Well, were you able to use your own guns to fire on the aircraft?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But then one time, the ships were anchored, maybe 15, 20. Most of them were all destroyers. And the front ones, and we were one of the front ones, started a smoke screen. So the Bettys, when they came over, they just seen the old cloud. They didn't know where to bomb the ship. But then we got our white towels and got them water, and then that's what we breathed on, because you oh man,
you were right in the middle of your own smoke screen. Yeah. So you're in the middle of your own smoke screen then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, you
We
mentioned...
were setting them off on our bow,
Right.
covering all the ships that were behind us.
Okay. And you mentioned the Bettys, and those are twin-engine bombers, and those are level bombers. They fly and they just drop the bombs on you. Did they also come at you with fighters or dive bombers or kamikazes?
No. I don't think we ever were attacked with a kamikaze. We were attacked with a Japanese fighter plane.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think. But the Navy woke up the latter part of the service there. When the airplanes start coming, they'd come broadside and shoot at them because we had a lot of power that way. We gave them a bigger target.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, we turned tail, and all we had the fantail, and they would drop themselves in the ocean, and they'd miss us.
Mm-hmm.
They woke up the latter part of the war.
All right. Of course, if they're coming at you at that level, then some of them would have been kamikazes or something.
Yeah.
So now, at a certain point, your ship actually gets hit by a plane crashing into it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now,
and that was a fighter plane. They were dogfight. When we got to where we were supposed to go, we had orders we couldn't fire because the Marines were up there dogfighting with the Japanese. And they had got this guy. He was on fire when he came by us. Mm-hmm. And he came on our port side and he must have pulled back on a stick, and he hit right in the chief's quarters and put a pretty big hole. But I didn't hear this for a couple of years later. One of the officers were aboard the Roper, of course, and he was on the bridge. And then we have a get-together every October, the four-stackers. And this one particular time, we was in Chicago, and that's where he lived, and he was in poor health, so he came just to see us and talk to us. And we had quite a few guys around the table, and he pointed right at me, and he says, "You know, the Lord was with you that day." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Seconds after you three guys got blown off your gun, this Japanese fell out of his airplane, and he sat in the seat I was sitting in." Oh, my goodness. I almost grew wings right there.
All right. Tell me, where were you on the ship when that plane hit?
I was on the bow.
Okay, and you're manning the forward
Number
gun?
one gun.
Okay. And then the plane hit. How close to you?
It come from the starboard side, and about 10 feet out of the water, and landed right in the chief's quarters.
Okay, so it kind of slammed into the side of the ship then?
Yeah.
All right. And so
on the starboard side, which is the right side of the ship.
Right. And so you're a little bit above where it hit?
Well, we were on number one, and then, he was down a little way, but his ship was coming on a quite a direct angle there. Mm-hmm. And the guy the guy that seen everything, he just told us we were lucky. Right. Because when we got blown off, this Japanese, he came and sat in the seat I was sitting in.
So you're blown up just by the shock of the impact? It hits you and then you just fly off?
We got knocked off our gun with if you hit a wall with a car, then you fly also, that's somewhere. That's what happened to us.
All right. Now, were you knocked unconscious at that point, or?
No, but I broke my arm, and there was a bone sticking out here. Mm-hmm. And that was another thing. I went to Guam. Well, I went to the hospital ship Hope. They did not have a machine to take these little bones out. Mm-hmm. Then I wound it at Guam, and no one had a machine that would do the thing. So they flew me to Pearl Harbor, and they still didn't. I wound up at Oceanside, California, which is a marine hospital. That's where they got the little bones out.
Okay. Now, what were they doing with your arm in the meantime? Was it just all bandaged up?
It was in a sling, like this. I had a broken arm for all that time. It was almost a month later before. When I got out of the operation there, the ward was raising the dickens. What the heck's going on? Germany just surrendered. Mm-hmm. That's the day I had my arm operated, and I got wounded on the 25th of May.
Well, actually, Japan would have surrendered because Germany surrenders in early May.
Well, that's when they.
Because I think Okay, so yeah, because Okinawa starts in April, so okay, yeah, that works.
Well, I don't know.
Okay,
they
works.
just said the war was over.
Yeah.
And I thought it was Germany. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it could have been if it's because if it's August, then that's Japan.
Because we had to drop a couple of bombs over there before they give up.
Right.
I'm quite sure it was Germany.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, because if it was May, then that's going to be Germany. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. But people basically you wake up and everyone's celebrating.
Yeah. I said, "What's going on?" And they said, "The war's over. Germany just give up or signed off or something." I went back to sleep because I was half sleeping anyway.
Now, after the operation, how long did you have to stay in that hospital?
Quite a while, because I didn't get discharged till almost Christmas time, and I got hit in May.
Right. And after a while, could you get up and walk around and do things, or do they make you stay in bed?
I was walking, but I couldn't do anything with this arm.
Right. All right. So how did you spend your time then, those last 6 months of your service?
In order to get liberty, you had to do something in the hospital. So I went to the dead letter office. I was sorting out the letters, and then they gave me a night off.
And what could you do with liberty?
Just walk around and look.
Right.
Just like a tourist going in a place looking around.
Now, was this in or near a large city like Los Angeles or San Diego, or just
it was Memphis.
You're as in like Tennessee.
That's when I was in Memphis.
Okay. Because I guess you'd mentioned getting to California and the Marine Hospital, but did they do the operation in California or in Memphis?
I wound up in Memphis after everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But you're still sort of, convalescent or whatever, because you've still got the arm.
In Memphis, they wouldn't let you out unless you...
Right.
So I went home one weekend and got married. I got married on October 26th.
Okay. Now,
in 45.
Now, did you know the woman you married before you went off to the service?
Yeah, I knew the lady, yes. I had gone with her before the war.
Okay. And did she write to you during the war?
Yes.
Okay. Now, had you ever gotten back home between the time when you enlisted and when you came back after the end of the war?
I don't think I ever got home.
Oh,
no.
Didn't sound like it. It's a long time to wait for somebody.
Yeah.
All right. And then once you got home, then you said you went back to work again for Bissell?
Yes. I think I told you that story, but
you mentioned supervising all those women.
I said when I worked there before the war, I worked on the assembly line. And when I came back, I couldn't do anything with my right arm. So they made me a foreman over 60 women. I was ready to join the Navy again.
Well, did you adjust to that after a while, or did you change jobs?
No, I stayed with Bissell for 44 years.
All right. Now, how do you think that the time that you spent in the service wound up affecting you, other than taking your elbow away?
I learned how to obey orders.
And do you think you learned other things, just how to get along with different kinds of people?
Yeah, because I think I get along with people too well.
And how much of an effort, because you mentioned going to reunions and so forth, is that something you started to do relatively recently, or did you always stay in touch with guys?
No. What does it say here?
That's 92.
This was the second year. 91, I started having reunions. And this hat says 92.
Right.
And that's when I started going to the four-stacker reunions.
Okay. Now, between times, did you stay in touch with any of the men that you served alongside?
Just the ones from the ship, not other ships.
Right.
When you go to these things, there's a whole bunch of them there.
That's right. A whole bunch of guys you didn't know because they were not on your ship.
But we could brag that the Roper was the only one that had a baby aboard.
Right. All right. Now, to think back to the time that you spent in the Navy, in particular on board ship, are there particular events or people or things that kind of stand out in your mind or come back to you that you haven't mentioned here yet?
No, I don't think so. No?
Well, when we turn off the camera, you'll think of something. But
What's that?
When we turn off the camera, you will think of something.
Oh,
that
probably will.
always happens.
Well, I'm 87 already. I forget a lot of things.
Well, you've done real well. You've told us a lot of stuff that people wouldn't have heard anywhere else.
But as I say, we never stood still. They give us a lot of things to do, and we did them, happy.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to come in and talk to me today.
Well, thank you.